Yes, Undebayi, una welcome to this channel where we're giving our ogbonge updates on waiting they happen for we Biafran territory and how the Islamic State, the zoological entity called Nigeria, how it go collapse. This place na Ekiti State, where Fùlani buy people. And I remember say last week they buy two of their kings where they come back from meeting. One escape, but they didn't say the wise when we they complain say Fulani they buy us. Now they don't give them the water. Commotion don't enter their town and commotion go return there because they are wicked Afonjas, wicked people, bad mind people. For their family they go they talk Biafra matter, they go they talk Indibo this, Indibo that. They go they harass Indibo for their family. They don't grow to the say it inside their mind. When they see Igbo people na hang omona. Now what they call people? Looking and listening to Prime Minister for the nation wide briefing where he talk about what will happen tomorrow.
Good evening, the friends of Biafrans all over the world that have seated this evening to listen to the State of the Union address by the Prime Minister of the Biafra Republic of Nation Exile, officially the United States of Biafra. I welcome you all, ladies and gentlemen of the press, to this evening historic speech. We will be addressing a lot of issues, especially the new phase of the Biafra liberation as we prepare to go to the poll for the Biafra self-referendum, which is starting on the 1st of February 2024. This evening's speech by my humble self will be focused on the evolution of freedom and human rights. And I will be making references to different heroes and heroines of this world. The evolution of freedom and human rights. On behalf of the Biafra government in exile, I appreciate Biafrans for their unwavering support so far. I also call on Biafrans world over to stand firm and continue to stand with the Biafra government, both in the exile and in the de facto government of the homeland, as we embark on a next phase of our liberation, which is self-referendum. I want to remind us today, however, how our heroes and heroines of the past changed our world today, starting from as far back as 1380, over 630 years. Some of us who may be very conversant about freedom fighting may have come across a very famous speech made by John Ball titled "All Men by Nature Were Created Alike." Evolution of Freedom. In May 1381, Wycliffe priest called John Ball addressed a group of rebelling laborers who would later take part in the so then called peasant revolt, a revolt that was partly caused by the introduction of the 1380 tax. In his great speech, Ball argued that all men by nature were created alike, that the servitude of agricultural workers continued what he called an unjust oppression. He argued they serve to cast off the yoke of bondage and they recover liberty. They should fight for equality in liberty against decree, nobility, and class. It is these words that are often cited as the inspiration for the June 1381 revolt led by Wat Tyler. Today, these ideas may sound pretty normal to us and many of you 21st century humans. But the truth is that this speech was made over 630 years ago, when it was considered very dangerous to even think that such thing should be said by anyone, let alone preach it. That's why this speech is very important in freedom fighting. Sadly, both Ball and Taylor were executed for this word as traitors for their egalitarian views. They were killed because their pro-socialist and progressive belief were seen as a threat 630 years ago. They saw them and their speeches as a threat to the established order of the society. Still, their actions and their words live on. Their word that was considered dangerous, that led to their death, has become part of human rights laws that we all enjoy today, but they die for it. It is not because they were killed, but indeed their views has become part of international laws for a progressive world. This I would say, was a foundation of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, that all men are equal, but Ball and Tyler died for saying and advocating for it. That is evolution of freedom and human rights. What was abolished, what was a dangerous thing 630 years ago, has become your law today, because somebody stood and said it. That's why, as a Prime Minister of the Biafra Republic of Britain in Exile, it does not matter what you call me today. What matters to me is what you call me after 10 years, when I have liberated my people. This is the reason many countries like Finland, who are well advanced, can't hand Simon Ekpa over to any terrorist country, like Nigeria, for standing firm, fighting and defending his people, and a stand to be challenged anywhere. Finland is living in the future. It's a fact. My fellow Biafrans, let me remind you that there is another great speech called "Let Us Make Reparation to Africa." Reparation is today word that many human rights activists, many freedom fighters are preaching freely, including the government that killed for such word. Reparation to Africa was first made by William Wilberforce. William Wilberforce was an 18th century British politician, famed for his battle against the slave trade. On the 12th of May 1789, Wilberforce addressed the House of Commons. With a fearful precision, he argued them to vote for the slave trade abolition in the British Empire, citing inhuman practices as an effusion of human blood. Then, the advocacy of Wilberforce was so dangerous, become a threat to the British Empire. 2 years before Wilberforce made the speech, 132 African slaves were thrown into the sea from a slave ship. Hence, the reference to human blood. He criticized the use of violence and tyranny among seamen and merchants towards slaves, and cited his belief in the commandment, "Thou shalt not murder," as the source of his abolitionist belief. Wilberforce also argued, "Thou shalt do no murder," as the source of his abolished belief. He argued that such cruel trade could not possibly be regulated or conducted in a human way. Total abolition is the only possible cure, he argued. This speech made by Wilberforce made any plea of ignorance on the part of his fellow MPs at the House of Commons of the United Kingdom, made them untenable. The callousness of the slave trade was revealed for all to see for the very first time. The campaign of Wilberforce and others to bring to an end to slavery was a very hard fight. They fought it. This speech was a significant moment in bringing about the British West Indies in 1807 and the Slavery Abolition Act in 1833, which abolished slavery throughout the British Empire. This is evolution of freedom. I want you to pay attention to today's State of the Union, where we are making history the way it is, to make sure we save our people from the hand of the Nigeria Islamic State. We will make a very tough decisions as we move on from today going forward. This decision will later become history. So I'm making references to the other heroes and heroines of this world, who at the time of their own freedom fighting, everything they did became abominable, only for what they did to become the law that guides the universe today. It is the evolution of freedom fighting and freedom. It is important to educate our people while we are taking the steps of the Biafra government. The Biafra government are taking the step it's taking today, is that we have figured out what will work for us against Nigeria. It is also very important to educate our people how history are made as we go to the poll for our self-referendum, because they continue to ask, is UN supporting you? Is America supporting you? Do you have a European Union observers? And I have told them we don't need any of those observers. We are conducting this referendum by ourselves, and we are going to declare Biafra, defend it with every mechanism that we have, and it will go down in history as Biafra used every mechanism to liberate themselves from Nigeria Islamic State. In the United States, a woman had no right to vote in an election until a woman called Susan Anthony fought for it. Somebody somewhere have to always stood up and fight. Somebody somewhere had always stood up to fight before change could happen. That is exactly what the Prime Minister of Biafra Republic Government in exile, Simon Ekpa, and the entire cabinet and the entire government in exile are doing today. Somebody somewhere have to start this fight, and it will be successful at the end of the day. When you remain resolute and never change your principle according to who.
Yes, now welcome back. As now here waiting Prime Minister talk, he don't give us history of how all this declaration movement as they happen for world history. One thing we talk last now, you have to remain resolute to this cause. As far as in a just cause, you must stand your ground. Don't let anybody push you left, right. You must stand our ground against this wickedness, oppression of these Fùlani and these puppet leaders. On this part, I go rest my case.